Yesterday, Nigerians listened to some of the leading candidates in next year's election speak on the state of the nation and the country's leadership challenges at the 2022 conference of the Nigerian Bar Association, NBA. Some of the candidates who attended the conference were Atiku Abubakar of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, Peter Obi of the Labour Party, Adewale Adebayo of the Social Democratic Party, and Dumebi Kachiko of the African Democratic Congress, ADC. Bola Tinubu, the candidate of the All Progressives Congress, APC, and Rabiu Kwankwaso of the New Nigeria People's Party, NNPP, who were originally invited to the conference, did not attend. With the theme of the conference tagged Bold Transitions, there is no doubt that the next president of Nigeria has a lot of bold decisions to make to turn the fortunes of the nation around. The 62nd NBA conference, which officially opened on the 19th of August 2022, will continue till the 26th of August 2022. Joining us now from the conference venue of the NBA 2022 annual conference and to look at the various activities yesterday is Olumide Akpata, NBA president. Good morning, Olumide Akpata. Thank you very much for joining us on the morning show.
Good morning, Ruben. Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Good morning. Well, quickly, let's start with the theme of the conference, bold transitions. Why that theme, and how far, how well is it going? We discussed on this program earlier on the contributions by presidential candidates in the 2022 general election. But there must be a reason for NBA focusing on the concept of transitions.
Ruben, I really can't hear you very well, but I think I heard you ask why the theme bold transitions?
Yes. I wanted you to talk about the theme of the conference.
Okay, so yes, the theme bold transitions.
Let's go ahead.
Yeah, we selected that theme after much, again, thank you for having me, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity. We selected the theme bold transitions because, firstly, two words, bold and transitions. We identify that in the legal profession, in Nigeria, in the world, there's a transition of sorts going on at different levels. And we also recognize that it could be like going down the river with a canoe, and you could either just allow the river take you to whichever destination it decides, or you could paddle furiously, you could boldly proceed, knowing that there's a transition taking place, but trying very hard to define how you want to come out on the other side. So we're looking for audacity, we're looking for, at the level of the legal profession, we're looking for audacity at the level of Nigeria as a country, and indeed our world. Our world really needs people who can take bold decisions as we confront a transition that is unavoidable. And so, which is why we decided to pick on that theme, and as a notable voice in our polity, we thought we have a responsibility to make this call, a clarion call of sorts to our people, to the profession, to the country, to the world, that we really can't sit down and fold our arms in the face of impending change, and without taking very conscious decisions to ensure that we land safely on the other side.
Okay, good morning, Mr. Akpata. You came into office with a lot of promise and expectations. Well, I would say you have not disappointed because you brought a new vim, vibrance, back to the NBA as we used to know it back in the day. Now, what will you consider the highlights of your tenure, which is coming to an end after this conference? What will you consider the highlights of your tenure?
Thank you very much. Indeed, my tenure comes to an end on Friday, the 26th of August. I will be handing over to our President-elect, Yakubu Mekiao, SAN. And for me, it's gratifying. It has been a good run for 2 years. My team and I, we are extremely grateful to God for the opportunities that He has given us. There are many highlights. As you can imagine, it will be difficult to pinpoint one or the other. But I think when we were running for office, one of the things we identified very quickly was to get the buy-in to ensure that we got the buy-in of our members. Not only was society a little bit unhappy with the bar, our own members also were quite disillusioned and disenchanted. That's what I noted particularly. And so we said if we were to succeed at all, we would have to firstly get the buy-in of our members. And I think for me, that is the most important achievement. We have the lawyers themselves believing again in their association. It is not possible that we can even make any impact on society if our own members have absolutely no faith in our association. But I'm happy to report that in the last couple of years, what we now have is we have the lawyers themselves, the members of the association themselves taking ownership of the association and the issues that confront us. And so for me, if there's any single achievement we can point out, it would be that we have gotten our members believing again in our association. One clear example of that fact is that when we went to the polls, when we had our elections in July, we had 38,000 members of the Bar Association show up and vote. If you consider that the first electronic elections we had in 2016, only 6,000 people showed up to vote. So that's a quantum leap of sorts, and you know, there's no telling what we can achieve now that we are truly a group of people working together to achieve our purposes. So for me, that would be the high point.
Anything you could have done differently?
Well, I think, you know, I belong to a generation of Nigerians that we don't see tribe, we don't see religion, we don't see ethnicity. So when it comes to taking decisions or, you know, picking people who would work or on committees, and this is just me talking about our internal issues now. You know, instinctively you go for merit, you know. Instinctively you just go for putting your best foot forward. Instinctively you go for the best man or the best woman for the job. But what I find is that just like secular society or mainstream society, even in the Bar Association, you can run foul of convention if you don't take some of these other issues into consideration. If you don't take religion into consideration, if you don't take ethnicity into consideration. As you know, at the bar, we have our own zoning. So this last election, presidency was zoned to the north. For Nigerians, I am the type of Nigerian who really, I frankly have very little patience for those considerations. But I have learned that I must also consider looking into those issues. I must also pay heed to those who say that it is a mix. It is a mix of talent, merit, and then other considerations.
Okay, well, before I go into these issues about your legacy, let's again look at what happened yesterday. What do you think of the submissions by the different presidential candidates who showed up at the opening ceremony of that annual general conference?
Oh, thank you, Ruben. I think, firstly, I'm so glad it went well. At some point in planning that session, it became a bit of a hot potato because we were now being called to question. Our bona fides was actually being questioned whether or not we were not trying to favor one side against the other. I got calls from all over the country as to why one party or the other must be invited. It was a session. It was a regular conference session. It wasn't a party manifesto night, but you know how these things go. So anyhow, I think it went well, and I was really glad that the candidates or the panelists who spoke had the opportunity to tell us what exactly it is that, what their thoughts are with regard to Nigeria. It was a session we titled Democracy in Transition, and we're looking at 2023 and beyond. So my takeaway, you know, I listened to Justice Umadi, the Honorable Justice Umadi, who is the candidate for APGA, and he mentioned something about he would try to get rid of, one of the things he would try and get rid of if he were to get into power was self-interest. For me, that's the bane, that's the problem. Self-interest is the issue, because as Vice President Atiku mentioned, it's really not about rehashing the problems. So we know the problems. We know exactly what the issues are. We have talked about them over and over and over again. So I was quite happy to hear from Justice Umadi that one of the things that he would do is to ensure that we eliminate self-interest. Because if we begin to think country, if we begin to think in terms of, you know, what is best for the majority as against, you know, selfish primordial considerations, I think we will go far. So we got that, I got that from some of the candidates. And we were quite impressed with I was particularly impressed with their candor, with their forthrightness. But I was happy to hear them concede that the issue really is not about policy, it's not about laws or the absence of laws. The issue is about leadership. The issues are about leadership and implementation. The session after that, we also looked at energy in transition and how the subnationals are coping with our dwindling resources from oil and gas. And just the Honorable, His Excellency, the Governor of Edo State, Godwin Obaseki, he had to echo again. He had to just remind us of the Nike slogan. Just do it. You know, and for us, the lawyers, the MBA, that is our frustration. We hear a rehashing of our problems every day, but we really don't hear too much of solutions. So yesterday was a bit different, you know, because the moderator of that session was past president of the association, Olisa Akpata, senior advocate of Nigeria, and I think he was able to pry out of the candidates what it is that they will do. What will you do to move this country, take us back from the brink, from the precipice that we're at the moment? And I think we heard from Mr. Peter Obi, His Excellency, former governor of Anambra State, the Labour Party candidate. We also heard from Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, to put it on record, was represented by His Excellency Senator Kashim Shettima, who is the vice presidential candidate for that party. So we heard from them, and I think all in all, it was a good takeaway, and absolutely delighted that we were able to curate that session, put it together, and in so doing, the MBA again was answering to our public interest mandate. You know, we serve our association, we serve our members, but we also serve society.
Okay, how would you rate the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari on the rule of law? The rule of law.
Well, this administration, as far as the rule of law is concerned, you know, where we the lawyers take our bearing, you know, it's out of the heart the mouth. The Holy Book says that out of the heart the mouth speaketh. You know, President Buhari came to a conference of the Bar Association a couple of years ago and told us, he told lawyers that the rule of law from time to time, and I'm just paraphrasing, would have to take a back seat from time to time. Would have to take a back seat where the security of the nation is in issue. And for us as lawyers, we were taken aback, at least some of us were, taken aback by the fact that the president and the commander-in-chief of this nation, most populous nation in Africa, we have been practicing democracy now for well over 20 years, and for the president to come there to our own conference to tell us why the rule of law may have to take the back seat, it was a bit of a problem for us. We had, when we ruminated over it, we thought that was a bad, really bad signal. And so, how well have they done? It's a mix really. What I find is that in some cases there's a healthy respect for the rule of law, but in other cases we have issues. So the NBA, through our public interest litigation committee, we have had to take government to court under my administration at least 4 times, if not more, because we see that there is that sometimes we see there's that unhealthy disposition to the rule of law. For example, you know that we had to challenge the government of the day, this administration, when they attempted to extend willy-nilly the tenure of an Inspector General of Police which had already expired unconstitutionally. And indeed, with a bold face, this administration decided to extend his tenure of the outgone Inspector General of Police, and we challenged that. Only recently, the Attorney General of the Federation decided on his own to amend the rules of professional conduct. And this one came close to home because it affected the legal profession. And there's a procedure for, well spelled out in our laws, for amending the rules of professional conduct. And the Attorney General by himself decided to amend that document. And we, despite all our entreaties, we went to him, we spoke with him, we reminded him of the fact that the law prescribed how this statute or the rules ought to be amended, and he paid us no heed. We had to go to court, and I'm happy to report, as you may have heard, that the Federal High Court decided in our favor that he had absolutely no right to do that which he purported to do. So, by their fruits you shall know them. And so I personally say that they haven't really done so well, this administration, with regard to upholding the rule of law. I'm hoping that succeeding administrations will learn from what has transpired in the last 8 years and hopefully try and up the game, because respect for the rule of law is not only a matter that concerns us internally. The world is watching. The world is watching. The world really needs to believe and understand that this jurisdiction is one in which you have predictability. You have you can expect, there's a reasonable expectation that the government in power will do the right things. So that is not to say there's a total disrespect for the rule of law, so let me just moderate my comments and say there have been instances where this government has been most respectful of the rule of law. But at national and subnational levels, we have seen, sometimes we have seen a very, very, not very commendable approach to these issues.
Well, NBA President, when you assumed office in August 2020, in your inaugural speech, let me quote this passage from your speech, which someone says is a memory verse, and that's a Sylvester Udemezue Udems. Know him. The bar that I want to lead henceforth, these are your own words, is one that is united on all fronts and that recognizes that our diversity is perhaps our greatest strength. We desperately need to unite and speak with one firm voice. Doing otherwise will be a great disservice to our vision of building a stronger and formidable bar. So if the measure goes ahead and he says, learned benchers, silks, profs, seniors, and colleagues, our market. Has Olumide Akpata leadership united or disunited the bar? Is it not messy everywhere within the bar? And you know, of course, the context in which all of this has been said. The issue with Joyce Udua. And I've read the 2 pieces. one by Okutepa SAN, the other one by Murtala Abdurrashid SAN, alleging that the NBA under your watch has not been fair to Joyce Odua, NBA Secretary General, now suspended. You have been accused of ignoring the fact that there is a court process in place and going ahead, despite the fact that you were in court with your counsel, when the issue Joyce Odua versus Incorporated Trustees of the NBA came up in Abuja. So you've been accused of all kinds of things, violating the rule of law, even when the NBA under your watch is supposed to defend the rule of law. Are you guilty as charged?
I'm definitely not guilty, Ruben, and neither I am not guilty. The Nigeria Bar Association, our National Executive Council, is not guilty in my own assessment. But of course, I cannot be a judge in my own cause, so I will simply just say that I plead not guilty. I do not find myself not guilty. I leave that to the court of public opinion. But United Bar, we have done our best, even before we get to the issue of Mrs. Odua. We have done our best in the last couple of years to ensure that we bring the bar together. Before I came into office, before my elections, or during my elections, quite a number of persons had thrown a wedge in the bar, between the inner and the outer bar, as you know, Ruben. Those who are between the senior advocates and those of us who are not senior advocates, quite a number of persons tried very hard to throw a wedge between those two categories in the bar. And in the last 2 years, I have tried very hard to ensure, with my colleagues working with me, to ensure that we bring back that unity. I have worked closely with many senior advocates. On our National Executive Council, there are 40 seats reserved for the senior advocates. At least 60%, maybe 50% of my committees are chaired by senior advocates. I have the best hands working with me to ensure that the bar progresses rapidly. Indeed, my Dr. Tunde Ajibade, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, with whom I contested for the office of President, accepted to chair the NBA Judiciary Committee, and together we have worked so hard to ensure that the NBA intervenes positively in the judiciary in that space. So I can go on and on, efforts that we have made to ensure that that division created by quite a few who do not really mean well for this association, again out of selfish interest. We have tried very hard to ensure that we bridge that divide and we work together as one, which is why in my speech yesterday, I asked all our members to stop for a second and reflect as to where we are as an association and see how far we have come. And indeed, what we find is that the bar is doing much better than it was before I came into office, and that is as a result of the effort that we have all put in to ensure that we're in a much better place. So speaking directly to the issues of Mrs. Odua, the association, like many others, we operate by rules. We're a rules-based profession, a rules-based association. And Joyce Odua was elected as General Secretary, and she has her responsibilities as prescribed by the Constitution of the NBA. And she took steps that were considered to be inimical, that were considered to be steps that were considered to be wrong, as far if you look at what her responsibilities are under the Constitution. As you know, the matter is sub judice. I really can't speak to the issues, but I must very quickly speak to the issue of whether or not the NBA ignored the dependency of that matter in court. No, we did not. As you know, Ruben, there's something, you can't injunct an act that has already been done. Joyce Odua was validly suspended by the national officers of this association. And all that happened, and indeed she went to court, and the Federal High Court, she sought for an interim injunction, and that was refused. and that was refused. And what happened at the National Executive Council meeting on Sunday was that her suspension, which was already in effect, was ratified by the National Executive Council because without that ratification, we can't take any other, even that meeting itself could not have been held. And you know, nature abhors a vacuum. There's no way we could have proceeded without ratifying the act that had already been done. Nothing we had not, when you talk about paying heed to dependency of a court action, is to ensure that you do not tie the hands of the court and ensure that the court, in its final determination of the matter, is not rendered ineffective. What the NBA did was to ratify it so that we could proceed. She remains suspended. The suspension is being challenged in court, and the court will decide one way or the other. But what we did, what the National Executive Council did, was to ratify it so that we could proceed. Indeed, at that meeting, there was a petition for the removal, the outright removal of Joyce Odwa. There was a petition for the outright removal of Joyce Odwa at that National Executive Council meeting. But in the best traditions of the legal profession, we as a body declined to look at that petition precisely because there is a matter in court at the moment, and we could not take any steps that would render that matter useless. So we have done nothing wrong in our estimation, and we have proceeded. The association cannot grind to a halt. It is our responsibility to ensure that we move on within the bounds of law, or within the boundaries of our laws, and that's what we have done, Ruben. I assure you that the Nigerian Bar Association will continue to uphold the rule of law as has always been our mandate.
Okay, well, I know some of the details you have given are different from some of the details given by Abdulrasheed SAN and Okutepa SAN, but I don't need to dwell on that. Just to know that the Joyce Odwa matter may well be a matter.
Abdulrasheed SAN is the lawyer to Joyce Odwa. So
excuse me?
He will always have his views.
Yeah, fine.
I wanted to ask you. Butala.
Yes. And then...
but go ahead, Ruben. Yeah, go ahead. Let's move on.
We'll leave that. I'm sure, others are watching and listening. Two major issues I want to bring up briefly as we try to wrap this up. The first has to do with that matter between a law firm of Olanikwekun SAN and Ajumogobia SAN triggered by solicitation, ambulance lawyering as alleged by Ogunde Esquire. Your thoughts on that? And then, as briefly as possible, why was it that yesterday at the conference, some lawyers were wearing Peter Obi caps and claiming that they were obedient? And you said the issue was not about campaign, it's not about manifestos. But why was it that no effort was taken to check people using the platform of the NBA to make, to campaign in a partisan manner? Those two quick issues.
Thank you, Ruben. With regard to the matter that is currently before the Legal Practitioners Disciplinary Committee, where the NBA has brought the Miss Ogunde, Adekunbi Ogunde, who is a partner in the law firm of Wole Olanikwekun & Co., brought her before the LPDC with regard to what we consider to be professional misconduct. I really don't want to speak too much to that on that issue, but what has happened is, just to clearly state the facts, we all know that Ms. Ogunde, as a partner in that firm, wrote to the client of another lawyer and tried to convince that client that the law firm of Olanikwekun & Co. could do the job better, essentially, do the work better than that other law firm. This is just me breaking it down as simply as I can. And in the legal profession, that is a no-no. That is anathema. That is forbidden. We don't do that, as you know, Ruben. We don't ambulance chase. And so, in exercise of our regulatory mandate, the NBA has brought this matter before the LPDC to determine whether or not Ms. Ogunde has committed any acts of professional misconduct. But also, in our petition, we have asked the LPDC to determine also whether or not the law firm of Wole Oladigbekun, the partners of that law firm, are also have also committed any misconduct because of the fact that their partner carried out this action. And indeed, if there had been any benefits from her acts, they would have all been beneficiaries. And so it's only opposite that they should share liability also. That's essentially is what our petition is about. The brouhaha, as it were, that came out of all of that was the second step we took as the NBA, which was to write to Chief Wole Oladigbekun, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, past President of the Bar, who happens to be Chairman of the Body of Benchers. The Legal Practitioner Disciplinary Committee is a committee of the Body of Benchers, and we thought that Chief Oladigbekun ought to recuse himself during the pendency of this petition, and that is our position. And because we believe that the rules apply to all, no matter how highly placed or lowly placed, and that's where we are with regard to that. And we have written to Chief Oladigbekun, we have written to the Body of Benchers, and we have asked them to consider this this matter. That indeed it is for the survival of our profession. It is a matter that is important if indeed that we want to see this profession attain the heights that we want it to attain. It cannot be that we teach the rules of natural justice to first-year law students and tell them you cannot be a judge in your own cause, and then when we call them to the bar, we tell them that actually it's a witch hunt, or it's blackmail, or whatever. That is not the point. It is what is the law? What are the rules? Let's apply the rules so that everybody knows that it's a level playing ground or level playing field. So that's with regard to that. Ruben, on the issue of lawyers using the platform of our conference was a campaign for their candidate of choice at the national elections. I'm really surprised and shocked to hear that there were lawyers at the conference who were donning campaign paraphernalia or campaign attires for their candidates. We had sent out warnings to our members. We had told them, we had asked them to apply decorum, not to boo, not to cheer, we sent out the guidelines for that session. And I am actually hearing for the first time that there were lawyers who breached those rules. I apologize on behalf of the Nigerian Bar Association to anyone who firstly, that this happened, and just to let you know that it was not our intention. Having said that, we put the rules in place, but you know, the Constitution also allows for freedom of expression. So it's very difficult to curtail those freedoms. Indeed, we can only try to put in rules to curtail the freedoms within the bounds of our own conference, to the extent that we are legally allowed to. But we have to be careful also not to be seen to be attempting to fetter the rights of any individuals. But like I said, I reiterate my apology to Nigerians if indeed this happened.
Well, thank you very much, NBA President Olumide Akpata. We wish you all the best with the remaining sessions at the NBA 62nd Conference. Thank you very much.